Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Trevor Pirard, and I'm an employee of the Davis County Public Library. I do all of our customer service for tech. And today I'm going to go over basic cybersecurity for the new year. With the new year, a lot of people get stuff for Christmas, a lot of devices that they don't know how to use. So what I'm going today is to go over how to protect those devices and hopefully protect all your private information, because it can be surprisingly easy to get to because most people don't realize how insecure their phones are, their laptops are, because I think as long as they just have it on them, they're good. No one can just steal it from them, but there's much easier ways to get in and steal someone's information. So part of this, we're going to be doing a giveaway. We have two $25 gift cards. I believe one's to Target, the other's to Amazon. To get into that drawing, simply just leave a comment about maybe your experiences with cybersecurity, or ask a question. Please ask questions throughout the thing. I'll stop talking at some points just to give you time to ask a question, and I'll always be here to help. And at the bottom of the screen, you'll notice my contact information. My email and my phone. If you ever need to contact me about something tech-wise and want to set up a one-on-one appointment, because I do a lot of those as well, feel free to, and we can figure something out to see how I can help you. So let's get started. So for an overview, what we're going to go over are passwords, web browsing, scams, and computer settings. These are four of the big areas that you need to watch yourself and everything else to be able to protect yourself correctly. So first, I'm going to start with passwords. Account hacking often occurs from unsafe password usage. A strong password won't contain a name, birth date, street address, or any other personal information for you or someone you're related to. So like a child's name and their birth year, or your name and your child's birth year. If you look over to the right, we have this little chart. So this comes from NordPass, which does a lot with like security and VPNs to have secure networks. And they pulled together a list of top passwords that are weak. And as you can see at the very top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And from the information they grabbed, there was 2.5 million of their users that use that as a password. And it takes less than a second to crack it. You wouldn't think that someone would use that for a password, but it is much more common than you would think, whether it be on a website or just on your phone or something you may access every once in a while. If it's made correct, we can talk about that here low at the end. They shouldn't be, just because of the way they're set up, but I'll talk more about that at the end. Thank you for the question. But as you can see, the top 11 in this are all a combination of either numbers or it's words such as password, where people may not reset those. It's a high security risk of using the same password across multiple accounts. If you use it for an account that gets hacked and it's the same email as your password, that could be a very big concern, because if someone gets into your email, they have a much easier chance of getting access to all your accounts, especially if they funnel into it for their password resets. Or if you don't have them separated between work and personal stuff, it could be an issue as well. Modern phones do have the capability to use fingerprints or facial recognition as passwords for access, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later when I get to the little phone section about it. So the strongest passwords are ones that are a random set of letters and numbers with at least one symbol contained somewhere inside. So if you look at the example, it's just a bunch of letters and numbers and a symbol. It doesn't spell anything out, like some people may use what they call leet speak, which is they'll replace certain letters with numbers. They'll replace O's with zeros and E's with threes, or may replace T's with sevens. If you look at the little cartoon off to the side, the troubadour is kind of an example of that. that people think they're safe by using those, but they're take a little while to get access to, but they're still relatively easy because you're using a replacement number or symbol for a letter. Where if you just have them in a random order, it's much harder for it to crack. And of course, a longer password is going to be more secure than a shorter password. And then another strong example is a series of nonsensical words. So if you look at the bottom part of the comic where they have it saying credit course, battery staple, it's much harder to connect that just because it's a bunch of random words that have no association. Now you maybe will make an association so you can remember that password, so you may create a little image or a story to remember it for that. But that's not something anybody would know unless you told them specifically that's where that information came from. And again, it's a long word, so it's going to take quite a while. If you look at it, it talks about it being 44 bits of entropy, so answering, and then they do the math, and it's going to take 550 years and 1,000 guesses a second to be able to just guess a password like that. So they're much harder to brute force their way through. A brute force is just a manually or using a system or software try to every combination they possibly can. It's like having a padlock on something, you forgetting the padlock, and then trying every combination possible to open it and write down each one to remember which one you tried. Eventually you get it, but it's going to take more and more time than it's worth. So now we're going to move on to talking about phones. Pattern passwords may be convenient, but again, they're not the strongest way to protect your privacy. If you think about when you touch your screen, the oils on your fingers get on your screen and you're typically to wipe them off. But if you have a pattern that you're constantly tracing in your screen, that's much easier for someone to see. You can take your phone and angle it at light to see where your fingers have been touching, especially if you've been eating something recently with your fingers that might be a little bit greasy, like chips. That's going to leave that residue on there that if someone could get out of your phone, it'd be a lot easier for them to get into your phone by tracing that pattern, especially if you haven't just wiped your phone off. And most of us probably don't just always wipe our phone off after putting that in. Modern smartphones, again, like I said, you can protect your password with the fingerprint reading and facial recognition. Facial recognition has gone back and forth of being secure and unsecure, of people being able to get past it, people being able to use photos of you to get into it. Fingerprints a little bit harder. You can't really do like you do in the movies and just have someone touch a glass, put some powder over it, use tape to get the fingerprint, and just put it on the back of their phone. They can already do all that. There's probably quite a few easier ways for them to get access to your phone. Also, it's probably someone you trust a little more than the average person to do that. But the fingerprint reader's pretty good. It gives you pretty easy access to it. The caveat to having both of those, though, is that you'll have to have a backup password anyways to access your phone in case it doesn't want to read it or is having trouble recognizing your fingerprint. Maybe your fingers wet because you've been sweating or something, or you just got out of the pool or the tub and your fingers have that kind of swollen look from just absorbing a lot of water. And talking about that, we'll go to the traditional PIN you can put in for your password. The PIN isn't bad for easy access, but it's not great for security. Typically, those passwords are just 4 to 6 digits, and even if they're longer, there's only 10 possibilities that it could be in each one of those locations. So a password that only has 4 digits in it, not a lot it's going to take before you can crack it, especially if you start, like most people, they put a birthday, a year, a number that's in some way important to them, and if someone can figure out your birthday, they can get those information. A traditional password, again, like we talked about earlier, nonsensical words and numbers and symbols, or a series of words that have no relation to each other, will work better. Yes, it'll take longer to get into the phone, but it's more secure. But I'll say most people probably don't keep their phone very far from them, so they're are a little more secure in that manner. Another setting you can put on your phone is most of them have settings within it where if you get locked out, if someone attempts your passwords enough times, not only does it lock the phone out, which you can set how long it locks someone out from just a few minutes to hours or days, it can delete all the data on your phone. Where this may sound scary for someone to do with your phone, especially if you have a friend who wants to just play around and lock you out, not realizing that if you have a work phone or sensitive data on your phone, it may be very important to have that. I personally don't use it, but I can see someone who works with very important paperwork. Maybe it's a phone from a job and they're very high up. You work in a hospital with a lot of sensitive data and you have a lot of information on there because you use it as a reference source, or even like an iPad. It can be very beneficial to have that setting on there. So those traditional passwords typically are going to work better even on your phone, same as your computer. So password tracking and authentication. These are another important step to help keep more protected. So keeping track of your passwords can be hard, especially if you're following the correct path and just doing different passwords for every website. There are several ways you can keep them all safely in one place. The two on the screen, LastPass and Dashlane, are both apps you can get on your phone and access on a computer. So I use LastPass myself. What it does, it allows you to do passwords for websites, put in banking information, really anything that you use a password for. It allows you to make a tracking of like the website's address, what your username is, password, if you need to make extra notes. And you really only have to remember one password to be able to access it and all your passwords. It'll also do a password generator. So say I'm making a new account for Facebook. I start to sign in, use my email, and then I need a password, but I want it to be something unique. You'll click the generate password and you can set it to be just 10 items up to however many. If you want to make it 30, 40 items, you could. And it'll give you a random set of letters and numbers and symbols to be able to put on that, and it would save it. You can also copy and paste from it as well. That way you're not having to manually type it in. If you log in, you can copy and paste it over into an account. So you get on the computer for the first time that you're not signed into anything on. You can sign into LastPass on the browser, log in, copy and paste it. You're good to go. It's just remembering that one password to help try to remember all of them. And I will say LastPass as well does do the biometrics, so it does a fingerprint scanner as well, so you can get into it pretty quickly. Account access can also be backed up through another process that we call two-factor authentication. Sometimes you'll see this when people talk about it or see it on display on the website is saying 2FA for the two-factor authenticator. Most people have experience running into this with Google. Google's pretty well known for using it. So if you go to log on to your email from a new computer, often it'll say that it needs authenticated, and a lot of people will get either a text message or their phone will beep and show an alert asking you if you've been logging in or you are logging into this computer or this phone or whatever device from this location at this time, and it'll ask you accept or deny, so you can accept it or deny it. So if it's not you logging in, you can say no. It's very handy for making sure someone else can't log into your accounts. Google also has an authenticator app you can get on your phone that you can set up other apps to. So going back to LastPass, mine's set up to that authenticator. I can set it to log in every 30 days and it'll keep track of it and honors it for 30 days. And after 30 days, I have to go back into the authenticator, re-authenticate my access to my LastPass account, and I've got it for another 30 days. Again, just multiple ways to protect yourself and keep somebody from accessing your information. So now I'm going to move on to web browsing, which is one of the big places people will get viruses and such from and lose access. So preventative measures should always be your first line of defense against a hostile action. It's much easier to prevent something than to react to something. It may seem like a lot of work at first, but once you get everything set up, it's a lot easier than having to spend time and money getting access to accounts back, having to possibly recreate accounts if you can't get them, having to reinstall a computer because you run a virus on it, or in worst case scenarios, someone steals your identity and you have to go through that major mess of getting access to all that again and getting it safe, or losing money and having to try to get reimbursed on it through insurance or whatever method you would go through. So the first thing you want to do is check website spelling. So if you look over to the right for Google, that lock button shows that it's a secure website, that it's been checked and processed. Another way you'll notice are websites that say HTTPS and then have the colon and then // and then your website. That means a website has been secured. It's an official website. You can trust it. Visual safety cues, so things that are misspelled, that just don't look right compared to what you're normally seeing from a website or an email from a company. So you can look at the email and be like, this doesn't look like the other ones I've got for them, to possibly see if it's a hack. And then avoiding risky links and download buttons. It's very easy with ads on a website to see if you're trying to download a program, to see, maybe half a dozen download buttons, and you have to make sure what ones are the correct one, which sometimes even the correct ones may appear a little bit sketchy. And that's when you want to look at the links. When you hover over a button, you'll see usually in the bottom left of your browser, you'll see a web address. And those are the type of links you want to look at. You want to see if it has that information. I'll actually go over two here at the bottom here in a moment and talk a little more about those. Thanks, Jennifer. So again, with links, making sure it's secure, it shows that HTTPS, which is secure, that the website is spelled correctly. So maybe a big one is that they'll use a lowercase L for an I, or a uppercase I for an L if it doesn't have the top lines on it, because they can be so close to each other that a website may look correct at first. So you may be going to walmart.com, or that's what the link says, but it's actually WAIMART, and takes you to a spammer's webpage. If you look down at the bottom image I have, it's kind of that example of the link there. It's just an HTTP. It takes you what you think is the example for the content, and then immediately takes you to their website, which could cause you to get spammed with things you don't want. Or if you suddenly click on a download on it, you're downloading some kind of virus or a worm. To help prevent those issues, such as the risky links and ads, are through ad blockers. So AdBlock Plus and uBlock Origin are the two big ones. If you run Google Chrome, when you go to get extensions, you go to the right, click on settings, search for extensions, and you can install those. I use them on all my devices, on my computers, and to be honest, I forget that there's even ads on websites because I haven't seen them in forever. And that's usually the very first thing I do, is go and reinstall that if I get on a new computer, because it keeps you from accidentally clicking on anything, and also web pages just look a lot better. They look a lot nicer and cleaner without all that junk on there. You can get these things for Firefox and stuff as well. It's just making sure you get the right one. But AdBlock is probably the biggest one I've seen, and then the uBlock Origin is more recent. And I actually run both of them just as a double protection. If one doesn't catch it, maybe the other will catch it. It's kind of like a sieve when you're trying to filter. You use multiple things for filtering, and it just helps provide more layers of caution and protection. For web browser choices, there's a lot to choose from. Safari is the standard for Mac computers and is pretty well secure, and then Edge now on Microsoft computers. Most people are used to Explorer for Microsoft and a Windows computer, but they now switch to Edge as being their main one, or their one that comes pre-installed. Other viable choices are Google Chrome, Firefox, Opera, and Brave. All four of them are good. They're considered fairly secure browsers, and then just making sure you have ad blockers on them. It all depends on what you're wanting to do. Opera itself is a pretty good for like privacy in general, just for protection against cookies and remembering websites. So it should work out really well. If that's what your concern is. Google Chrome, of course, is great for having your account over multiple things. That's what I use because I can easily access my computer, my phone, all my files. I'm going to cover Facebook settings. Facebook is widely used by a lot of people, and a lot of people don't realize some of the stuff Facebook keeps track of or has access to. Some of y'all may have gone to sign up for a website and it allows you to create an account using either like your Google account or your Facebook account. You may use that for a website you bought something once on sale 6 years ago and then never paid attention to it. The thing is that account is still connected to your Facebook. And that information, if they were to hack into that account or that website was to get hacked and that personal information get out, it could be a big issue, and you want to be able to make sure you can protect that information. So what you'll do is when you're on Facebook, this is for a computer, you'll click on the top right corner where it has that arrow and drops down your settings. You'll then click on apps and websites on the left column. It should be towards the bottom. And then it'll show you what websites and apps that are active, expired, and have been removed that are connected to your account. So you can always take those active ones and get rid of them if you don't want that connected to your account anymore. It's pretty good, especially if it's not something you're constantly using anymore. Now, if it's a website you use more frequently, you're probably fine keeping connected because you use it. You're keeping track of it. Someone's not going to get into your account, get the password, and you not know about it because you're actively using it. Again, it all comes down to how often you use it. If you use the account a lot or just once or twice and maybe years ago. That's up to each individual how they prefer to treat that. Now I'm going to move on to the types of scams that get into. So they're a type of fraud that target people via emails, phone calls, and fake software. The typical ones for email are what we call phishing. So they'll try to phish information out of you. Fake things from the IRS, the FBI, for taxes, again, like taxes, to try to get information out of you. They try to scare you with it. The phones, you'll get those automated messages for like the IRS, from credit cards, lotteries, sweepstakes. And then security software, you'll either get fake virus protection pop-ups or like the FBI lockouts. And I'll talk a little bit more about all of this specific types here in a moment. So with phishing, they may send out an email saying, oh, hey, your password is expired. You need to reset your password. Or they may actually be asking for personal information. Kind of like how you see on Facebook, some of those questionnaires that'll pop around where it'll ask you, oh, what's your favorite animal and favorite color? What month were you born in? And it'll give you a little information about you, or it'll allow you to pick those dates, and it'll give you a name for something. Those are actually ways for companies or individuals to try to get your personal information from you to try to log into your accounts. Because again, people will use that information for the passwords, but those are also the type of answers you use for your recent questions. Typically, what was the name of your first dog? What is your maiden name? What school did you go to? What street did you grow up on? Those are so often used as your answers for questions that if someone can get those and they know your email, it makes it that much easier for them to say, oh, I forgot my email. I need to reset it and put in that information. That's what phishing is, and they'll do the same in emails as they will on Facebook or any other social media. The IRS and FBI, again, it's fake emails from them, look at the links. You can tell that they're fake because they're not going to make sense. And again, real organizations are never going to contact you like this. They're going to send you something in the mail, with the phone. We've all received those, the scam calls, and now luckily they're showing up on phones, pretty often showing up as spam risk, so you can kind of ignore them a little bit easier. Just that if you ever have problems with this stuff, your best bet to be proactive is if you get an email from someone that looks suspicious and you're not sure if it's from them or someone faking to be them, or a phone call that does the same, email them directly, call that number back off the website and actually pull their website up. Go to their website and try to log in. Never try to reset your passwords through the email. Always go directly to the source by not responding to those messages, those emails. If the phone leaves a number to call back, don't call that number. Go look up the IRS. Go look up your credit card and who it's through and what number to call for customer service. For your email, if it's supposed to be coming from a coworker, just start a new message, put in the coworker's email, and be like, "Hey, did you send me this? Sounded a little sketchy. Just wanted to clarify." The security software, the virus protections will come up as fake virus pop-ups, which are pretty easily to get somewhere with. Oh, you think, oh, my computer's trying to protect me. You click on it, you download a virus. The FBI lockout is a scare one that freezes your screen and makes it appear like you've been doing something wrong, regardless of what you're doing, and wants you to pay to unlock it. Those are issues you're probably going to have someone who's knowledgeable in computers fix for you, because at that point you already have a virus in your computer. So I'm going to talk a little about computer settings and then malware. You can make several changes to your computer that are preventative measures and ones to help you if you're ever infected with the virus. So your firewall is a system that safeguards your computer. Most computers have a built-in one. You just want to make sure it's on, and you want to make sure you keep it updated. If it's not updated, it has a harder time keeping track and protecting you against viruses because they're also constantly being updated. It's a war back and forth of keeping everything updated to protect you and fight against whatever's current. If none of this makes sense, please feel free to ask more questions about it, and I can always explain it again. I can always do a one-on-one to set up with you to help you set up some of this stuff if you need to. So router settings are another one. Having your Wi-Fi be password protected, and preferably with what they call a WPA2 setting. It's a type of password that's more secure. So the problem is if you don't have a password on your Wi-Fi, or if you haven't changed it from the basic one, someone can get into your Wi-Fi and spread a virus through it, and any device that's connected is possibly your risk. Because all someone needs to know, if you haven't reset your password or changed it to something more secure, is all routers have a base password associated with them. The person just needs to figure out what kind of router you have, and they have a much easier time accessing it and getting your password to log into it. And that's the last thing you want, someone unknown getting into your computers, especially say your computer is shared to a network and they can access your documents, your pictures, any of that. They could copy and paste them. They could get a hold of them. So if you have important tax documents or work documents such as your own small business or anything for that matter, they would be able to get access to those. And then malware. So a malware is an all-inclusive term that stands for malicious software. It covers any of the programs below, so worms, ransomware, scareware, adware, spyware, and fileless malware. And I'll explain a little bit of what those are to you. So a worm is a standalone program that will replicate in a system and over a network. They spread by exploiting a vulnerability in your system. So if you remember Davis County, we got hit pretty bad 2019 with a hack. We weren't the main target for it. We just got kind of crossed in the crossfire, and that's what we got hit with, was a worm that got into our system. And it's they can be fairly easy to do. Typically, they're more targeted towards big businesses, your Fortune 500 type companies. But it's still possible for an individual to get it, especially if you say use your personal laptop as a work computer as well, and you take it into work and use it. If someone knew that, they could try to piggyback off of you to get it into your work. A virus is just the difference between the worm and the virus is the virus is something you get by clicking a risky link in your email or whatnot, and it downloads to your computer and just your computer. It's not immediately going to spread across the other computers that are maybe in your home, your significant other's laptop, your kid's laptop, or whoever. A worm now, if it did move, then it's a worm. Ransomware demands that the user pays a ransom, usually in a Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency, to gain access to their computers. It's one of the more recent ones that's come about in the last couple of years and can be very brutal and dangerous to places like hospitals who need their information there immediately because, again, if they have people who are critical condition, they need access to their files and any information. So it's targeted those places to try to get payment out of them, places that can't say, you know what, I can lose that year's worth of information and make it back up. If y'all remember, we lost some of our accounts and stuff like that because part of ours was a worm-like thing that ended up being ransomware that we had to lose some of our information, unfortunately, and had to get some of it back by a lot of work. Scareware, a lot of y'all may remember this from probably the late 90s, early 2000s. It's those pop-ups. The FBI's locked you out of your computer. The IRS is going to do something. You're going to be arrested because you're doing something illegal on your computer. They're trying to steer your information or payments out of you. Usually they're telling you to put in your credit card data and download a fake antivirus program so you can protect your computer. Adware and spyware are similar. Adware just pushes a lot of unwarranted and unwanted advertisements at you, so they're not as prevalent now, but I'd say probably late 90s or 2000 when you would see just a dozen different things pop up onto your screen and just you had to constantly exit out of them and they would keep popping back up, that was adware. Ads just for different websites and different products, which again, some of those could have been actual ads, but they've also could have been viruses for something more dangerous or more insidious. Spyware will record a website's or a user's visits to websites, their keystrokes, and other information. If it records your keystrokes, it's more specifically called keylogger. Those are very dangerous because it allows them to track passwords you typed in, account numbers, credit card numbers, and other sensitive data that gets sent right to them. Again, you can get that from a virus by downloading a wrong link, and then suddenly you have it. And then fileless malware is it's not something you download, so it doesn't really get noticed by a virus scanner. It sits in a computer's memory and can easily sometimes evade detection by hiding in something that's already a trusted file, so there's no reason to scan it. They're less common than the other types of malware you'll find, so you're less likely to run into it or less likely to notice it. Now we'll talk a little bit about preventative care for that. So downloading an antivirus or anti-malware program will help you protect your computer against possible threats. At least one is recommended, though having more than one can improve the protection of your computer, and there's no harm with having more than one. The two that I recommend are Avira and Malwarebytes. They're both free programs. You don't have to pay for them. I really don't recommend McAfee that comes on computers or they push towards you to get, because again, it's a free trial, you have to pay for it, and they're just not as good. Avira and Malware are pretty well recommended by a lot of IT people to use. It's what I use. You'll want to make sure you keep them up to date to protect against the newest threats. You can set them up to run automatically every so often, or you can do them manually yourself. I have mine to run automatically, and occasionally I may go in and just run it to see what it picks up. And sometimes it'll just pick up trash files as well and help you get rid of them. And then that's it. That's just a reference page for the link I had earlier. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask. Hopefully that helps set you up with the basics for it. And again, if you need to do any of this or need help with any of it, can't figure it out, please feel free to contact me. I'll take it back to the first slide with my contact information. And we could try to work on getting a one-on-one appointment together to try to help you with some of this. Also help out with many other things as well. So I help people set up Kindles, get access to our public, some of our public services such as Hoopla and Libby or Overdrive, so they can get ebooks from them. I help set up laptops and phones, show how people to use them. Learning Excel and Word. I'll do small classes of those occasionally, but I can also do that stuff one-on-one as well. So feel free to reach out to me for any of that. And in the next day or two, we'll announce the winners of the gift cards. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Oh, sorry. I forgot. Almost for every question. I'm sorry about that. So watches being susceptible to hackers, not as well because most people don't connect their information to them. They don't have, I think you can put like your credit cards and stuff on them or certain cards to be able to, like Apple Pay, I think, to swipe. They're not as lucrative right now because you're better off going towards a larger target and larger market instead of trying to fish for information in a place that's pretty shallow and doesn't have a lot of fish swimming in it. So I don't think they're an issue now. That could change as they become more prevalent, but as of right now, I don't believe they're a massive security issue. Hopefully that answers that question. Again, thank you all for attending and have a wonderful day.